If you're in the market for a premium style V8 four-wheel drive wagon with 8 seats and you live in Australia, well, up till now your choices have been pretty limited. You'd be looking at the Nissan Patrol or the Land Rover Defender 130. Well, that's about to change because General Motors Specialty Vehicles are importing the GMC Yukon Denali to Australia. It comes here as a left-hand drive vehicle, but is converted to right-hand drive to suit our market. It does have a price tag over $170,000 though, and is it any good off-road? Well, that's what we're here to find out, so stick around. The 2025 GMC Yukon Denali is a top-shelf 8-seat four-wheel drive wagon, and it has a price tag of $174,990, but that's excluding on-road costs. Standard features include this 16.8-inch multimedia touchscreen system, and that has wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. There's also a 14-speaker Bose sound system. The front seats are power adjustable and heated and ventilated. And there's also a 360-degree camera system on board, and on the outside it has those massive 24-inch alloy wheels. Exterior paint choices include black, white and red, which is on our test vehicle, but be aware, some of those paint choices do cost $2,000 a pop. For even more details, make sure you read my full written review at carsguide.com.au. Rather than go into vehicle dimensions and measurements, what I will do is state the bleeding obvious. This is massive. It's like a normal SUV but on steroids. That grille, size of a house, that's pretty eye-catching. The rest of it is standard SUV style, but it's so big it can't help but have plenty of presence on the road. It's got massive 24-inch rims, which are not suited to off-roading, but we'll get to that later. And the rest of it kind of fits, but in a big, in-your-face kind of way. The Denali's interior is very functional and it is very comfortable, and there are plenty of storage spaces for everything and plenty of charge points for your devices. It lacks a distinctive premium feel to the entire interior. It just doesn't feel like you'd assume it should in a vehicle at this price point, and that's a bit of a disappointment. But otherwise, as I said, it is very functional and it is very comfortable. And that includes the second and third row, which offer plenty of space and plenty of comfort. The Denali is a big vehicle, and so as you'd expect, the interior is quite big as well. 3 rows of seats. We've got the third row down so we can put MaxTrax in their vehicle recovery kit, but there is actually quite a generous space behind that third row when it is in use. There are tight end points in the back here, a little bit of underfloor storage. Overall, a large functional space, so it lends itself to having plenty of potential as a touring vehicle. The Yukon Denali has a naturally aspirated 6.2 litre V8 petrol engine, and that produces 313 kilowatts and 624 newton meters, and that's matched to a 10-speed automatic transmission. This is an impressive setup, especially for a vehicle so big. It really punches the Denali along the road. It's smooth and controlled, very composed, and it just makes for an enjoyable drive. The Denali has a part-time four-wheel drive system, an electronic limited slip diff, and several driving modes including towing and off-road, normal and sport. So firstly, the Denali is very impressive on road. It's settled, it's composed, the throttle response is great, that V8 just rumbles along, that's also great. On the open road, this is pretty close to flawless, I'll have to say. It's smooth, it's refined, it's just a really nice vehicle to drive on road, but off road it's a whole different story. And a lot of that has to do with the 24-inch wheels on this vehicle. They just aren't suited to four-wheel driving. It does have high and low range gearing, it does have an electronic limited slip diff, and it does have drive modes, one of which is off-road, and that seems pretty well calibrated for a variety of situations. But it's a large vehicle, and although it's not too difficult to steer around, even if the tracks become pretty tight and treed in, and it is a hefty vehicle, so you feel its weight on dirt tracks and over corrugations. It can be pretty jarring over even light corrugations. It does have air suspension, and that does some levelling out of even major imperfections in the surface of the road. And it does have a special damper system going on, and that all evens out ride and handling pretty impressively. But ultimately, even though the Denali does have the four-wheel drive mechanical system there, and it does have what seems to be reasonable off-road traction control, it's just let down by its 24-inch wheels and its paper-thin tyres. If you put a set of decent, aggressive, all-terrain tyres on there and maybe 17-inch, 18-inch, even 20-inch wheels on the Denali, then that would go a long way to making it even more capable and even more comfortable in a lot of off-road scenarios. And again, this is a big vehicle. It's 2.8 tonnes, 2,813 kilograms. So it requires more consideration, more patience, more skill, and probably more experience than perhaps some smaller four-wheel drives do. The Denali's payload is listed as 634 kilograms, which is not a lot for a massive vehicle like this. Its towing capacities are 750 kilograms unbraked and 3,500 kilograms braked. If you do, however, put a 70mm tow ball and a weight distribution hitch on the Denali, you can tow legally as much as 3,628 kilograms. Now that's not a whole hell of a lot more than something like the Petrol, which is 3,500 kilograms, or the equivalent extra large four-wheel drive wagon. So the extra towing capacity in the Denali is not that big of a selling point. Steering has a nice balance to it at low speeds. Throttle response is really quite impressive and controlled. And from the big 6.2 litre V8, you can call on that 624 Newton meters pretty much as you see fit, and it really does deliver it smoothly and in a controlled fashion. Pretty easy fix on the Denali. Get rid of those massive wheels, put on some decent aggressive all-terrains, and a rear diff lock and a front diff lock wouldn't go astray either. The Yukon Denali does not have an ANCAP safety rating because it has not been tested, but what it does have is 6 airbags, including a full-length curtain airbag that covers all 3 rows in the vehicle, as well as a full suite of driver assist tech, including adaptive cruise control, a tyre pressure monitoring system, and lane keep assist, as well as a whole bunch of other stuff. There's too much to go into here. For even more details, make sure you read my full written review at carsguide.com.au. Obviously, with such a big vehicle, this is almost 3 tonnes, driven by such a big V8 engine, fuel consumption is a concern. Official fuel consumption is listed as 12.8 litres per 100 kilometres, but on this test I've recorded 16.2 litres per 100 kilometres, and I have done some high and low range four-wheel driving. The Yukon Denali has a 91 litre fuel tank, so from a full tank you could reasonably expect a driving range of about 560 kilometres, and that's going by my on-test fuel figures. The Yukon Denali has a 3-year, 100,000 kilometre warranty, and that's pretty ordinary in this day and age for a four-wheel drive wagon. Roadside assistance is available, but make sure you check with your dealership for up-to-date details on that. Servicing is scheduled for every 12,000 kilometres or 12 months, whichever occurs soonest. The Yukon Denali is a big 8-seat four-wheel drive wagon that now occupies its own niche within the Australian market, but it just doesn't offer enough over what could be considered its rivals in terms of premium look and feel, towing capacity, and it all comes back to that price tag. For the price of this vehicle, you could buy 2 Nissan Patrols and also get a camper trailer and a couple of cartons of beer, who knows? It all boils down to if you really want to own a US four-wheel drive wagon. Maybe that's your cup of tea and you can't see any other alternatives. What do you reckon? Have your say in the comments section below, and as always, make sure you read my full written review at carsguide.com.au.